Okay, today we're going to talk about completing the square. Now, for completing the square, what we want to do is practice a little bit with how to work with finding square roots. Now, here's a couple quick examples. This first one, I've got 4x squared plus 10 equals 46. I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides, so now I have 4x squared minus 36 equals 36, excuse me. I divide by 4, I get x squared equals 9. And then I have x squared equals plus or minus 3. Okay? And let's try a couple of the other ones. 7x squared minus 10 equals 25. I'll rewrite it here. 7x squared minus 10 equals 25. Okay? My first step here is to add 10. So now I've got 7x squared equals 35. Divide by 7, divide by 7. X squared equals 5. How do I square root both sides? Now when you square root both sides, you get two solutions. The positive root is the square root of 5, and then we have the negative root, which is negative square root of 5. And we're just going to leave our answers like that. Here's another example. 2x squared plus 9 equals 13. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. Now I have 2x squared equals 4. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X squared equals 2. Square root both sides. X equals the square root of 2, comma, x equals negative square root of 2. That's a good start for basic square roots. Now next, how to solve a perfect square trinomial. Now at first we see this equation. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 25. Okay? Now, if I look at this one, the common way of doing it would be 4 going to 4, which will give us 2 and 2. So I've got x plus 2 times x plus 2. But we're much better off writing it like this. X plus 2 quantity squared, and I'll continue it equals 25. Now when I square root both sides of this, I will get x plus 2 equals 25 for one, and the other one will be x, if I lost a little something here, let's try it again. X plus 2 equals negative 5. I'm sorry, I forgot to square the root previously. This one needs to be positive 5. Subtract 2 from both sides. One answer, x equals 3. The other answer, x equals negative 7. Okay? Same way that they got. Now, the most interesting part of today's lesson is how to make expression a perfect square binomial. Okay? Now, one way of doing it is visually. I first have these two boxes. One box is going to be x times x. This other box is just a b. Okay? And if I was to make an expression out of that, I might call it x squared plus b times x. And that's the area for that group. Now if I want to make a full square about it, what I've got to do, I want to go ahead and I'll add a little piece up here. And I know that that's going to be, the edge of that was b. Okay? So I now have this little section here is going to be x plus b times x plus b in a way. But in reality, what I've got to do is I can't take the whole thing. I only want to take half of it. So what I've got to do when I make that change, and I'll use their box instead of mine, is they went ahead and took this, split it in half, and brought one part here and one part here. Okay, x plus b over 2 times itself or squared. Next thing we want to do is to go ahead and look for we're going to go ahead and look for something else on this. So this shows it adding this little b at the end. So I'm going to add this little piece to it, b over 2 squared. Now that's a little bit confusing in a way. I added that out of nowhere. So I want to show it a different way. Okay? So let me show you something here. And this is what their process is. And I'll go ahead and write my own using their same example. First of all, to complete the square. If I start it like this, x squared minus 10x. Okay? I'm looking for a piece which can add on to the end here, which will make a perfect square. So I want to have it look like this in the end. Okay? So this uses the format of ax squared plus bx plus c, which is called standard form. If I take the b format and divide that by 2, so b is equal to negative 10. So I'm going to take the negative 10, divide it by 2, and I'm going to get negative 5. Now what I want to do is go ahead and square that negative 5, and I'm going to get 25. 25 is what goes in this completed square. Now, if I was to factor this, I'm looking for the factors of 25, which add up to negative 10. In this case, that's negative 5 and negative 5. So inside my factor group, I now have x minus 5 quantity squared. So that's kind of a nice little thing that we have going on here. Okay? So here's a couple steps we're going to do. Okay? The first step is we're going to go ahead and rewrite the equation as x squared plus bx plus equals c. Isolate the constant. Divide by a if it's not equal to 1. Next thing we'll do is divide b by 2, and we'll square it. Add that expression to both sides. Factor the trinomial. Square root both sides. Solve for x. What I'm going to add on here is that it's going to have 2 solutions. So let's do a quick example. Let's say I've got this kind of function. Okay? I might have x squared plus 16x plus, I'll say minus 20 equals 0. This might not come out pretty. So our first step is to add 20 to both sides. I'll rewrite it as x squared plus 16x equals 20. Okay? Our second step is to go ahead, and we know that b was 16, so I'm going to do 16 divided by 2. That's equal to 8. Then I'm going to square the 8, and that's equal to 64. Now that 64 becomes pretty significant because I want to add that to both sides of the equation. So the original equation was x squared plus 16x, and I'm going to say plus blank equals 20. Now I'm going to go ahead and add that 64 right here. But you can't just add a number out of the blue. If I add one to one side, I have to add it to the other. So now I'm going to rewrite it. I think I can factor this. I think I know that 64 going to 16 is going to be 8 and 8. So this should be a perfect square factor. We have x plus 8 quantity squared equals 20 plus 64 is 84. All right? So let's check our steps out. All right. I added that to both sides, so this is my step 3 right here. My step 4 for factor the trinomial should be squared. Okay, I'm on step 4. My step 5 is to square root both sides, so I'll have x plus 8 equals the square root of 84. Okay? But I also know that I'm going to have the negative square root of 84. Now we'll do some more detailed work on this later, but for right now, one of my answers would be negative 8 plus the square root of 84. It's okay to leave the answer like that. The other answer, x equals negative 8 minus the square root of 84. Another way of writing this is x equals plus or minus, x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 84. Okay? Now the last part about this, so we've done this already. These are those same steps. I've done it a couple times. Now what about making it into vertex form? Now vertex form is pretty nice. So what I want to do is change it from this format. Let me go ahead and window shade this slightly. So I want to go from here, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now convert that to this format. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. All right? Now, there's a few steps involved with that. The first step is isolate the constant. So let's say I have this expression, x squared plus 4x minus 6. Just like before, I'm going to let one side be 0 for right now, and I'm going to go ahead and put an equal 0 here, add 6, so I have this. X squared plus 4x equals 4. My second step, if a is equal to 1, go ahead and find b over 2, so I do 4 over 2. That's equal to 2, and I square it. Now I have 4. My third step, just like before, whatever I find, I'm going to add that b squared. It's kind of like this, b over 2 squared. In this case, it's 4. I'm adding 4 to both sides. Same number I got here. Now I should be able to factor this because I have 4 going to 4, aka 2 and 2. X plus 2 quantity squared equals 10. All right, this is the same so far as the solving by completing the square. But the difference is now I'm going to, instead of square rooting both sides, I'm going to convert it. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract 10 from both sides. So this is my vertex form. That tells me I now have negative 2 and negative 10. Okay? All right, now there's going to be some times here where it's going to be a little bit different. Okay? And this is where we have to be a little bit careful. And let me start with a different one. Y equals 2x squared, and I'll say minus 12x minus, let's go with 24. All right? So in this case, we got to do a couple different things. I'll set it equal to 0 to start to help. So now I have 2x squared minus 12x equals 24. Okay? Now in this case, if I divide by 2, I'm now going to have x squared minus 6x equals 12. All right? Off to the side, I'll do negative 6 over 2 and square it. That's going to give me negative 3 squared, or 9. I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Equals 12 plus 9. I put it in red so you see that's being added to both parts. Okay? So when I rewrite this, I'll factor it to become x minus 3 quantity squared equals 21. Now, a long time ago, I divided by 2. And it's a little fussy, but in reality, that 2 didn't disappear. I need to bring that 2 back. So here, and this is a little bit confusing, and I might have to stop here. Here, there was a 2. Okay? and here there was a 2. So if I was to change this, and if I doubled that, I would now have 2 times x minus 3 squared equals 2 times 21. So that's going to be 42. So my final equation would be y equals 2 times x minus 3 squared minus 42. Okay? All right. If I want to double check that to be sure and make sure I got the same answer I started with, I'm going to go ahead and redo that. Okay, this becomes 2 times x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 42. 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 minus 42. Now I've got 2x squared minus 12x. 18 minus 42 is negative 24, and that's what I started with. Thank you, folks. Good job.